Hi, I'm Dan Mann, director of Dead Air, and this is my movie commentary for Dead Air. It seems wild to say that. Um, I suppose we'll get right into it, which is the credit sequence. In the background, we have Pink Floyd. Like in the build-up to making this or editing it, at least, I'd watched three movies that I think inspired this: Chinatown, Seven Samurai, and Bullet. Like 1954 it was Seven Samurai, Bullet was like 1967, 68, and Chinatown was early 70s, I think, 73 or 74. And I noticed something, like, compared to every other movie I'd been watching recently, was that those movies had these long opening sequences to do with just the names. Chinatown's was like a like kind of noir detective. Seven Samurais, you did large like drums in the background, war drums, and yeah, it really inspired me to think like, what could I do to sort of add to the narrative with the title sequence. So I wanted to take away everything the viewer had. I wanted to put like just the screen was black, and I wanted to put these names with this font that was sort of uncomfortable. Some was big, some was large. I kind of wanted the audience to be uncomforted by it and just to listen to the sound. And I really love to use Pink Floyd because I just thought, it is the best. We created one of the best albums ever. And these shots were something here similar. We're playing around with the radio to build into scene two. And of course, it's also a good excuse to get more credits out of the way. I said, we'd done that massive 1 minute credit sequence just because I was, I wanted to do my own Chinatown, I guess. And yeah, so we just kept doing it because there's so many people involved, so many actors. This actually shot right here, we filmed this in early December. So I'd been sitting on this for like 3 months nearly before I even used it. And I loved it because it was in the middle of December. We had this dynamic weather going of like the fog and in the forest. I just loved this shot. I thought it was amazing. I know that's not one of those shots that you can really like plan. Like I was just exploring in the wilderness and I just saw this happen. I was like, okay, I gotta get this. And then I just wanted to sort of build the scene for the rest of this. So we've pandering shots throughout the woods. And Can You Get That by Funkadelic. I love the Funkadelic album. It is much more sinister than it sounds. But nonetheless, we switched to the prison bus. We used sort of like, now we're listening on the AM radio. You can sort of hear it in the sound. We wanted to sort of build the atmosphere. Sound was a massive thing in this film. That we were kind of like, well, I want the audience to first hear everything. That was another thing with the intro sequence, is I wanted the audience to use their ears. Put as less stuff on the screen as possible. So, when you can't see something, your next instinct is to almost try hear it. Especially not while on the back roads to the prison. So that was the same thing here, is in one way I wanted to make the audience as comfortable and uncomfortable as possible in these massive wide shots where you can see everything. But then I also wanted to have these shots or this feeling that, you can see everything, but you don't know everything. Now, this was originally meant to be like a much bigger scene. Like, I wanted to blow the bus up. I wanted to, like, blow it on its side. And, there's a massive set piece, but we had real budget problems. And when I went to go get the bus from the DOJ, they're like, listen, this is our only bus. You can't wreck it at all. And I was like, damn. So I had to settle. I had to call someone's Cecil and Bradley, and I was like, listen, I need you to do this really quick stunt for me, just crash into the side of the bus. And it looks a lot less cool, but budgets are what budgets are. And so this is the next sequence we done, which was like a lot of cutting. I wanted everything to be close up cutting. Like, you don't really get what's going on until it's nearly already happened, which once again is sort of leading into the idea of the confusion You know, he's running for like 2 seconds. You see a train track. Next thing you hear like this massive train, and next thing you see him dropping off the bridge. And I wanted as much confusion to be in those shots as possible, because now you see us, and now we're much more laid back. Now you look at all the shots, like they're lingering for nearly too long. The problem was we went from shots going way too fast paced. Now look at them; they're all like lingering. they're lingering. Richard there, who plays John, is just panting away, and I sort of almost wanted to make it that way. And John is small. You can see everything. We done a little Dutch angle there, an unorthodox Dutch angle. I kept the camera the same, and I had the environment upside down. I really like this shot because I actually sneaked this from the Fugitive when he's walking on the highway. Their own version of it. And this is when we sort of, move away from the camera work and more into the dialogue. We get into it. But for those first 3-4 minutes, like, I wanted there to be as minimal dialogue as possible, because I wanted to tell a story through the camera. And it all happens so fast, and it's just really to get the audience uncomfortable. And this is probably the scene that annoys me most. Most in the film. I pointed this out to someone I was watching it with, and they didn't even notice it until I pointed it out. They were annoyed at me that I pointed it out. It was like, it's nighttime, and I really love this shot. We filmed separately, produced a news segment, and then put it on the television. And it's a small little shot that I think helps build the world a little bit more. I think small decisions like that just help build the believability of the world. But as you can see in the background, it's like evening time. In some of the shots, it's more daytime. Like right there in that shot, it's daytime. I think most people wouldn't notice. At this point, they've already forgotten. But for me, continuity-wise, it really annoyed me. We couldn't go reshoot because of budgets, but also we were on a time schedule that day because Diva Cats was premiering, and I was like, okay, I want to keep, filming this film, because it's really tough getting all those people together. I remember Dalton, we had him for that weekend, and then the next weekend he wasn't free, so I was like, okay, we gotta do it now. And that led to that. I don't think it breaks the film at all. It's more annoying to me. It is. So here we go. We're at the prison now. This is a fun sequence to shoot. It was a sequence I remember a lot of times I arrive on set, I'm the first person there. This is one of the few days where everyone was there before me, and I showed up and everyone was ready to shoot. I was like, wow. I knew that scene was going to be a good day. This is our introduction to Lee Renfro, and I sort of wanted to build the something's happening here, and he walks in and interrupts the shit out of it. That's just who he is. He's there to do his job, and he cuts through anything that's in his way. And I really love his intro. I love his first speech here. Originally, I thought that we were only gonna have the 4 people in the scene: Macaulay, Renfro, Tex, and Flash. But I arrived on the day in the prison, and we just had a bunch of prison guards around, a few extras, and I was like, let's just pile them into this scene and make this into this massive spectacle of Renfro's immediately in. We've got John, who's subtle, he's sort of in his shell, and then we have this guy who's chasing him, and he is just loud and proud and takes control. And I think doing that in a group setting probably lended more to the character, sort of gave him more. And of course, we didn't use Olivia Wheeler much in the blue outfit there, but I think for the parts we did, she nailed it. Same with Cheryl Sweeney as Tex. And Leonardo, who plays Detective Macaulay, was just always reliable. We'd often have him in scenes, and he wouldn't have lines, and he was just such a physical actor. He was always doing something. Originally, we were meant to have BCSO outfits for these two guards. You'll see John there in a second sneaking through the door, but we ended up not being able to get him. just because of scheduling conflicts. And like I said, I really wasn't a big fan of waiting around. I was like, we just need to get this done. We had it done in a month. And that's kind of what our philosophy always was, you know, keep morale high, keep productions going, keep the budgets low. And we also had it was kind of a bold choice to use the Ray Charles song, because I remember I was sitting down with a producer and I still hadn't edited this scene, and I was like, all right, well, if I go through getting like all the sounds from like ruffling through, it's going to take a long time, and I wanted to show like the cut of this, and in like I had 20 minutes nearly to put it all together. So I looked up a bunch of songs and I was like, you know what, Ray Charles? Yeah, I like how it worked. It kind of brought away from that heavy speech. It kind of brought the vibe right down. And of course, John's just been in the hospital. These two start talking about the hospital. So I then, you know, we're right back into the drama and tension as it's built right up. And these helicopter scenes were hard to do because, you know, helicopters are very expensive. Plus, you know, people to fly them, very few of them. So luckily Weasel let us borrow their helicopter. That's why you never see like an outside shot. Originally we were going to get like a police helicopter, but once again, most stuff we tried to plan with the police ended up not working out at all because they're very busy and we're very busy. And my preference for just, you know, mowing ahead with stuff always came before anything else. I was like, these actors aren't getting paid till the product's finished. So like my go-to is always to finish it. And this upcoming here is my favorite line of the show. He just delivers it so well. He just... one day, like, Silas was on set with us and he just brought this guy up to us, and his only thing he told us was his name was Shane. It's like, okay, let's bring him on. And like, he asked me where he wanted. He was like really inquisitive and asked me all these questions about his character, and I hadn't planned for this extra. I just planned for the shootout in the hospital. I was going to have it like empty, like, you know, they'd emptied it out. But like, he asked me like, oh, why is my character here? And I was like, oh, well, you know, it's something to do with your balls. You know, your wife cheated on you and you got some disease or something, you're here. We filmed the shot of him walking past, and like, I'm expecting him to be like all quiet. He just blurts that out. So I wanted this to be like a really heavy moment. This is the first time we see anyone killed on screen. So we put it back to back with obviously John reconnecting with his family, using a Lethal Weapon OST. If you're ever looking for like meaningful, emotional, you know, beats, I always go to, you know, an action franchise from the 80s, because some of the stuff they're doing with their OSTs was amazing back then. For Angel Night, we had Miami Vice and Thief, and for Dead Air, we went to Lethal Weapon, which had some really cool, jazzy, synthy, kind of emotional beats. And it was really heavy. It was. And it played perfectly into Betty Sue Jones, where all Betty's husbands go. And this was a really fun scene to shoot, because we'd shot nearly everything at this point. This was like one of the last scenes we were going to shoot. So I think like the whole cast is there, and they're at costumes, you don't really see them. So I think it was like a nice fun day, and that's probably one of the things you don't see in productions. Is it's about keeping it lighthearted. It's about like having fun with them. And that was one of these moments, you know, of managing a production over a film. I think there's film making and then there's the film business, and this was definitely more business than making. It was a fun little event for everyone involved. And Betty Sue played a few songs, and they worked out really well. And whenever you can get like an original song in a movie, you kind of just want to do that, because it helps sell the idea of the world. It helps build the world. So obviously here's John. You can't hear it now because I'm talking over, but you can sort of hear in your right ear the music still going on in there. So this is outside the pub. And I remember when I originally didn't have this in the script. Like when I went to auditions, I didn't have these two characters here. I just had, you know, John doing something else. But the two of them auditioned together. Magdalene in the background is a project supervisor for us at the company, and her longtime partner Pablo auditioned, and they had a few lines. Like she read some lines with him, and they really kind of, like, the chemistry was off the walls, which makes sense. and I saw them together. They played this Western rival duo, wanted to kill the other's brother or something, and I was so inspired that I actually created these two characters from that audition. I was like, I loved the idea of the dynamic they had going, that I wanted to recreate it as sort of a comedic relief almost. This is probably the most dramatic, like, this is the peak of the scene. All three of them give off really good performances, and it was sort of sometimes hard probably to motivate the two ladies to be motivated, because they only have, I think, 5 or 6 lines between them in the whole film. But for me, they were the most important part of this film. They really drove home the dramatic elements of it. And in this scene, we wanted to do a lot of stuff. Obviously, give a bit of background on who John was, build his character up. But probably the most thing I'm most proud of in this scene is actually the work that we did in post production. As you can see, everything in the scene itself is black and white except the red. And I really like that, because like when John looks back in these memories, all he sees is red. Not even does he want to. Like, he wants to physically see other colors, but all he sees is red, and the reflections of red on the tables and on the pizzas, and from the light of the candles. I think that's like a really small detail that, if we just had done it in normal color, like, yeah, it could have worked as a flashback, but it sort of gave the flashback more meaning, that like in 10-15 minutes, when you like get the reveal at the very end, this scene sort of makes more sense. It's like, why were only the red things in the scene, like, visible? It's because John is in denial, but like the one thing that resonates with the signifier is the red, the rage, the blood. And we come back into it. And this is a scene that we had, like, it was another stressful scenes to record. We got it in the end. We had some issues with the boom mic. And the biggest thing with these films that you're always playing with is the continuity of the scenes, because sometimes it might take 10 minutes to film a scene. You might have it done in the first take. Sometimes, like, scenes on this, you'll be doing this for an hour, and by the time you're like ready to move on to the next scene in the sequence, it's daytime, and you're like, well, shit. Either you wait for another hour, which is like expensive on the old tab, or you just keep going and hope it doesn't become too detrimental. So the big thing here that I wanted to do is we started implementing the whole thing of rhythmic beats. In the background there, you'll hear like the boom, 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 boom. And that's like a theme for the next few scenes as John starts to unveil himself more. The issue of time starts to become more prevalent in his mind, but also in the viewer's mind, as there's constant sort of a beating clock going on. And it sort of tells you that John is a man, running out of time and now running out of choices. He's being boxed into a corner by Renfro. This is another song I really wanted to include. It's by Kimura Song, called Expiration Date. It's probably my favorite it's really between this and Dead Air. I really love both the songs, but I think this edges me out because it never really gets unveiled in the film to like its full potential, but it's a really powerful song that I think if the listeners like truly listening to it, not just hearing it, but like listening to it, it'll give them like a sneak peek into who Johnny is and the choices that are coming up. This is another scene that I think we done a good job on. It's very like powerful emotionally. Kim Morrison puts in a really good performance, better than we could have asked for, and it gives some team bonding to the three detectives. I like the over the shot thing. I think that gives some breadth to it. Out of all the scenes, I think this is probably some of our most comfortable cinematography. And we usually don't do that because like the whole idea of the film is, uncomfortable. We love shots like this that show you everything in the room, but like the audience is still listening and they're like, well, I'm not getting the full picture. And that's what I really like. I really like sort of the conflict, I guess, there between what you're seeing and what you're hearing. And yeah, scenes like this I think just help bring it back down, you know, bring it back down. And what I love about stuff like this is when we bring it back down, you know, there's only one place we're going to go from there, which is bringing it back up. And I really like probably what the actors did to the script here themselves. You know, like we trust them to become the characters, not just play them, but like become them and have their own lines and think of their own stuff, like stuff they want to do with the characters themselves and improv. We sort of try and encourage that. The only time we'll ever step in is, you know, if we really feel something's wrong with the character. So this is probably my favorite sequence in the film itself. And you wouldn't even believe it, but like all three of the shots used in this were like all the shots used in this were recorded in 3 different sessions. So this really is a sequence that was done in post-production. Like the bike wasn't when the helicopter was there, the helicopter wasn't where the bike was there, and the scenes that we got weren't there for either of them. So all of these were recorded on 3 separate days, just sort of going off cliff notes that we had. Literally, I think the thing we had in the script was helicopter chases bike through forest, and the rest of it we just did in the day as stuff came. We had Derek O'Reilly doing the helicopter, and he'd done some amazing stuff, like flying over the bridge, flying in between trees. Richard done his own stunts in the motorbike as well. And we got loads of shots like this, you know, looking down, like in the helicopter looking down, which I really like those, because it just slows down the chase, but the music just keeps going. And this is once again from the Lethal Weapon OST. It's just there, and it just keeps pushing the footage onwards, and it's coming into this epic climax. And this is my second favorite shot in the film. It's like we start off with John in the left hand corner, we're going over the dam, you're seeing, you know, the dry sand, and the music keeps going. It's getting somewhere, it's got somewhere. John comes right back into frame, and I really like how that worked out. Because it feels like authentic, because when you're in the helicopter, it's not like you see everything, you know? It kind of gives a glimpse of what you'd see in the helicopter, is that, you know, sometimes you do lose track of someone, but they always come back in. And then this is us back here. And we dramatically fade the music out, kind of bad editing, but you know, it is what it is. Don't all rush it. I kind of like the quips sometimes they have, but I do admit sometimes they are badly placed. Coming in hard at the John Harris. And we did 2 takes of this scene. I remember we did 1 take where the actors just went out really angry, really loud, and a lot of cursing, and then another one where we followed the script. We ended up going with the one that follows the script. Just because I felt it was more authentic to the characters. You know, John is at this point really frustrated because everyone's perceiving him as this horrible man, and in his mind he's just, you know, trying to be free, an American, right, almost. We did a couple of cool stunts here. We had to do that twice, once into the water and then once from that massive dam. And Willie, our stuntman, who was Richard's stunt double for this, was in a wheelchair for many days after doing that massive stunt, like a 60-foot drop. And it turned out good in the film. Like, it's what, 3-4 seconds, but in my mind, you know, those 3-4 seconds fit the puzzle. You know, it's a puzzle you're sort of creating with a film, and sometimes it can be a really small part, but you know, it finishes the puzzle for you. And I think that scene right there really emphasizes the stress that Renfro is under. Like, we've seen him as a principled, disciplined man up to this point, and that scene really sort of showed, you know, listen, he's breaking a little bit. And once again, we have Richard recovering from a massive drop. This is another 2 or 3 shots. Like, originally from when Richard climbs out and radios his family, "I'm coming home," to the next scene, it was like instantaneous. Like he finishes that and then he's at the house. But I was like, I kind of want the audience to digest everything they just saw. They're just in this massive chase. And I wanted some music. To sort of also, like, something's happening. It was actually, it's horror soundtrack that we use for this. And I just thought, like, it perfectly summed up that, you know, this is almost destiny that they're going towards. It was always going to be like this. And I think this song nearly sums it up, of like, there's an inevitability in the encounter that's going to happen. That, you know, Richard was only ever destined for one thing. So I really like that kind of feeling of the soundtrack and how, like, it naturally dips. Richard has arrived home. And there he is. Renfro's there. And there's almost an inevitability in who he was and who he is now. And I really like the stairwell here because it's sort of a line in between them. You know, unknowingly, that's sort of something we did on purpose, is that one of them, by the end of this scene, is going to cross over that line. And I sort of want, you know, who is going to be, is John going to be the one to cross over the line and kill Renfro? Is Renfro going to be the one who crosses the line and sort of kill John? Or is that going to happen at all? Are they both going to stay on their side? So we wanted to raise that question of both of these men believe in something so passionately that it's driven them to this point. But is either man willing to abandon those principles to get the result that they want? aka John finding his family, or Lee getting his man in the end. And if anything, like, I always feel like a good movie never ends. Like, a good film doesn't have an ending, because a good film sticks with you. And that's something I wanted to do with Dead Air, is I wanted this film to stick with you, and, like, the choices the characters have to make. I wanted that to slowly stick with you, and for you to, like, exit the cinema and think, well, what would I would have done? You know, is what John did right? It's what Lee did. Was it right? And then we have Lee here asking himself the question of, like, you know, I have a wife and kids. Like, what you did affected me. So we have Lee cross the line, and the question is, what does he do? Does he arrest, or does he kill John? You know, what John clearly isn't, like, capable of taking accountability for his actions. So what good is prison ever going to do for him? This is our final song by an original artist, which was Cheryl Sweeney, Dead Air, for the credits. And I really love it. I do. Back where we started. I think like the lyrics in this song sum up the film perfectly. And that's the end. It's kind of weird to say. I wanted to end on a question. I think we did. It was questionable. We had Willow Tree there as a producer who's unfortunately passed, but, you know, still an important part of the crew in my mind. And when I look back at all the work I've done, I think the one I have the most questions about still is Dead Air. Like, did I understand Dead Air? Did I do a good job? Did my ideas probably get communicated? I think the thing with Angel and Night is I think the ideas that I had and the execution of those ideas was fairly clear. I think with Dead Air, it was much more ambiguous. Like, it was much more, maybe my ideas didn't translate that well. And you always have those doubts as a filmmaker, but I'm no doubt glad I didn't. And I suppose if I was to look back on it, you know, there's always stuff you'd change, but it was a hell of an experience with a lot of good actors, and I think there's a lot of good performances. And I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy how it turned out. And I think it's one of those films that I think everyone has to make. It almost feels like an indie film with an unreasonable budget. And if I was to say one thing on it, would probably be to quote Oscar Wilde, which if I had more time, it would probably be shorter. And that's probably the only thing I'd say. I remember him saying he was in prison, he was dying, and he was writing letters to his loved ones, and he said, if I had more time, I think it would be shorter. Um, and I think it's the same with Dead Air. That if I gave more time to it, I think it'd be shorter. But we put 2-3 months into the production, and I had a friend once tell me um a very good thing that I think is very much prevalent in anything you do. It's to figure out, when you're finished something. We spend a lot of time on these things. Like I spent 3 months on this, but I know directors who spend 3 years in films, often, maybe even 10 years, committing to ideas, developing those ideas, and they come into something very emotional. And when do you exactly know when you're finished something? When like a commercial might take us 3 hours, a TV show might take us 3 months. How do we know when it's finished? How do we know when we've gotten what we want to got, when the message has been expressed? And this person said to me, it's when you get emotional, because when you're finished, or it's almost an instinct. It's not an intelligence. It's an instinct that you get, and that instinct comes in when you get emotional about something, because hey, I'm saying goodbye to this project. And I think that's when we knew that Dead Air was finished. When we were filming those last scenes, and everyone was getting emotional, that like, hey, this is it, we're done. And I think it's a very good thing probably to teach. It's the final thing I'm going to say, is how do you know when projects like this are done? Like, one thing I'd always say to someone is, no matter how bad you think something is going in a project, always, always, always see it out. Go through it one time, at least, especially if it scares you. Because the easiest thing to do in the world is to go back and do it again, to redraft a script or to reshoot a scene. But you can't do that when you have nothing. So, do it once, and if you need to do it again, then you can do it again. And oftentimes you'll figure out that you don't need to do it again, and you get emotional about these things, and then before you know it, you're done. So yeah, that was the director's commentary of Dead Air.